Tonight, as Denmark sends officials to Washington, Greenlanders send a message to Donald Trump.
We are not for sale.
Why the U.S. president sees a U.S. ally as a target to buy.
I think it's about Trump's legacy. I think it's about him wanting to expand the American territory.
But if he does, what happens to NATO? Ahead of a fall election, Quebec's unpopular premier steps down.
Probably time he did that. It wasn't working anymore.
Got an issue with your phone and internet provider? Well, take a number.
In terms of how much it costs, I definitely think it could be lower.
Why customer complaints are on the rise.
From CBC News, this is The National with Chief Correspondent Adrian Arsenault.
Thanks for joining us. Well, they're spelling it out as clearly as they can to the U.S. president, but Greenland, Denmark, even NATO itself don't appear to be making headway. Donald Trump is standing firm. Greenland must come under American control. Officials from Denmark and Greenland met U.S. representatives in Washington, but the closed-door talks did little to ease the tensions. They say a fundamental disagreement remains over the island's future, and the potential fallout would spread much wider. Katie Simpson now with the security issues at play and how NATO allies are responding.
When the delegation from Denmark and Greenland emerged from their sit-down with Trump's team, there were clear signs it was a stressful meeting, as threats by the U.S. to annex Greenland remain on the table.
Here, our perspectives continue to differ. It's clear that the president has this wish of conquering over Greenland.
The foreign ministers of Denmark and Greenland say they tried to counter Donald Trump's narrative, saying the U.S. already has the power to expand its military presence on the ground, and Trump's claims about hostile warships being in the region are not accurate, while also remaining open to doing more for Arctic security, hoping there can be a more respectful tone.
How important it is from our side to strengthen our cooperation with the United States. But that doesn't mean that we want to be owned by the United States.
We need Greenland for national security, so we're going to see what happens.
Trump had not yet been briefed on the meeting before he took questions from reporters, though he insists Greenland is vulnerable to hostile attacks.
And the problem is there's not a thing that Denmark can do about it if Russia or China wants to occupy Greenland. But there's everything we can do. You found that out last week with Venezuela.
Amid the growing uncertainty, some members of the NATO Security Alliance announced plans to provide additional supports for Greenland. More military resources will be supplied by Denmark as they downplay concern the U.S. will try to take Greenland by force. I can't imagine, and I don't want to speculate, whether a NATO country would attack another, said Denmark's defense minister. In Greenland, the U.S. threats are not widely welcome, as some deliver their own message to Trump.
I would like to encourage to use your both ear wisely and speak less. We are not for sale.
The delegation from Greenland and Denmark will meet with Trump's team again in the weeks ahead. They aim to address U.S. security concerns while holding firm that annexation is a non-starter.
And Katie, really, this just sort of underscores how challenging it can be to deal with the Trump administration right now.
The strategy from Greenland and Denmark is similar to how Canada has approached Trump in the past. On trade, for example, Trump makes big threats. Sometimes it's not based in reality. And Canadian officials have to find a way to get facts directly to the president. Reiterate why cooperation has been so successful in the past, all while desperately trying to not make any situation worse.
Okay, well, lots to watch here. All right, Katie Simpson in Washington. Now, if Trump turns his rhetoric on Greenland into action, what would that mean for NATO?
This is not really about either national security or resources. I think it's about Trump's legacy.
Later in the show, we dive into the future of the alliance, and I speak with Janice Stein, founding director of the Munk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy, about the potential impacts here at home. And in this country, Quebec Premier François Legault has resigned. The surprise announcement comes amid tanking approval ratings. Sarah Levitt shows us the highs and lows of his time in office and how his departure sets up the fall election.
After winning 2 resounding election majorities, the end for François Legault came suddenly.
Je vois bien qu'actuellement, beaucoup de Québécois souhaitent d'abord du changement.
I see that Quebecers want change, the Premier said, announcing his resignation as leader of the Coalition Avenir Québec. It follows increasingly abysmal approval ratings. According to a Palace data poll, 75% of respondents say they have an unfavorable impression of Legault.
He could walk on water and people would shrug. And so after 8 years in power, after 2 mandates, generally in Quebec, Quebec voters want change.
Legault, a businessman turned politician, formed the CAQ in 2011, a middle ground, he said, between the Federalist Liberals and the separatist Parti Québécois. His government's legislation strengthening the French language and secularism was widely supported by Quebecers.
Bonjour.
During the pandemic, his approval ratings soared, the highest of all premiers in Canada. But it didn't last. Decisions like the one to pour hundreds of millions of public money into an electric battery plant with Swedish manufacturer Northvolt backfired when the company folded. Bitter fights with unions led to widespread strikes in the education, health, and social service sectors.
Things started to unravel, communication problems, flip-flops, problems with some scandals. So the personal popularity of François Legault declined over time quite steadily.
The problems were internal as well. Since 2022, 11 CAQ elected officials have resigned, including his confidant and longtime health minister Christian Dubé in December. In the Montreal area, people aren't surprised by Legault's resignation.
It's probably time he did that. It wasn't working anymore.
He just copied Justin Trudeau. That's my first reaction, and then it was like, okay, so where are we going from here?
And Legault will stay in the public spotlight for now as they choose a new leader.
So, Sarah, we're talking about 10 months before Quebecers head to the polls. How does this resignation shake things up?
Well, the CAQ already trailing, and now they're scrambling to hold a leadership race. But so are the Liberals. Corruption allegations led Pablo Rodriguez to resign. Polls suggest that the Parti Québécois is the party to beat. And they say if they win, they will hold a referendum on separation within their first mandate.
All right, thank you. That is Sarah Levitt in Montreal tonight. Prime Minister Mark Carney is now in China, where it's already Thursday morning. He is meeting with senior Chinese leaders in an attempt at a relationship reset. Ashley Burke is there and shows us what has unfolded so far.
Mark Carney's plane touched down in Beijing, the first Canadian Prime Minister to step foot in China for an official visit in nearly a decade. A nighttime arrival with the military guard, flowers, and ambassadors ahead of a significant 2-day visit. Carney's looking for a reset in relations less than a year after he called China the biggest security threat to Canada. The Foreign Affairs Minister traveling with Carney calls the relationship with China complex. Anita Anand declined to answer when asked if she still believes China is an increasingly disruptive global power, as Liberals have said in the past.
This is a new government with a new prime minister, a new foreign policy, and a new geopolitical environment. In this moment of economic stress for our country, it is necessary for us to diversify our trading partners.
The government wants to export more petroleum and liquefied natural gas to markets in Asia like China. Carney is also trying to get relief for Canada's agriculture sector. China has put tariffs on Canadian canola and other products after Canada matched American tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles. And the Prime Minister wants to move past years of tension after China detained Canadians Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig.
One of the challenges of dealing with China, right, is that it weaponizes not only economic relations like trade in canola, it weaponizes access.
Carney is traveling with a delegation of 5 ministers, signaling the importance of this trip. There will be an official welcome ceremony for Carney, and he's expected to meet with the Premier of China on Thursday to sign some agreements about where they can cooperate. A Canadian official also says Carney will be meeting with the President of China on Friday. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Beijing.
To Iran now, and breaking news from Global Affairs Canada. It says it is aware of the death of a Canadian citizen in that country, though no other details are available at this time. The news comes as Donald Trump has threatened action if Iran kills or executes protesters. The response from Tehran, defiance. And tonight, it is unclear whether Iran is headed for another war with Washington. In apparent anticipation of attacks, Iran has closed its airspace, and in apparent preparation for reprisals, the U.S. is evacuating some nearby bases of non-essential personnel. But Trump is now also suggesting that Tehran is heeding his demand and stopping the killing. From images emerging from Iran itself, Margaret Evans shows us there's little sign the lethal crackdown has ended or that the regime is backing down.
This is the send-off Iran's leadership has arranged for security forces said to have been killed in the recent demonstrations. Protests blamed by Iran on what it calls outside agitators and terrorists. Mourners in the crowd believe their government when it says Iran's recent troubles have been sent from abroad. People who shoot others from their own country are not one of us, says this young woman, suggesting they're U.S. or Israeli agents who deserve capital punishment. The mass funerals are an opportunity for the regime to get its supporters out on the streets in a show of force, says this analyst.
Basically showing to the world that it is in a strong position, that it's not sort of ripe for the picking.
U.S. President Donald Trump has repeatedly warned Iran that he'll intervene if protesters are harmed. Washington has ordered U.S. citizens in Iran to leave and pulled some U.S. troops out of military bases within striking distance of any Iranian retaliation.
Hello, everybody.
But at a press conference, Trump appeared to be walking back some of his earlier comments.
We have been informed by very important sources on the other side, and they've said the killing has stopped and the executions won't take place.
Another funeral, this of a teenage protester, the crowd chanting death to Khamenei, Iran's supreme ruler. NGOs say the number of protesters confirmed killed is already over 3,000. Mahmoud Amiri Moghadam says the number will climb.
Right now, a major concern is the possibility of hasty executions of those who are arrested.
The Chief Justice of Iran's Supreme Court has appeared on state television, apparently interrogating a suspect. He's called for speedy trials and punishment, saying otherwise they'll lose impact. Margaret Evans, CBC News, London.
Washington Special Envoy Steve Witkoff announced a new Palestinian body to administer Gaza, launching Phase 2 of the administration's peace plan. The 15-member National Committee for the Administration of Gaza will be headed by a former top official with the Palestinian Authority. Phase 2 involves demilitarizing and reconstructing Gaza, but hinges on Hamas agreeing to disarm, which it has refused to do. The Phase 1 ceasefire has seen months of Israeli airstrikes that have killed hundreds of Palestinians. In Thailand, dozens are dead after a construction crane collapsed, falling onto a moving passenger train and causing cars to derail and catch on fire. Kayla Hounsell shows us the crews combing through the wreckage.
Rescuers scouring the debris, searching for survivors. I saw smoke rising, so I came out to look, this local resident says. When I arrived, I saw the damaged train. I ran to check and saw many people lying there. He says he helped rescue some and carried the bodies of the dead, including a small child. Local officials say at least 32 people were killed and at least 67 injured when a crane being used to build an elevated part of the railway fell on a train Wednesday morning. The train was on its way from Bangkok to the eastern part of the country with nearly 200 people on board. This woman and her 5-year-old son survived. I'm shaken but thankful we survived and made it out, she says. I still feel so sorry for those who couldn't. our fellow passengers. Thailand's prime minister visited the scene, pledging to hold those responsible accountable.
We are deeply sorry about the incident that happened, and we will have to investigate what actually happened, and we need to improve safety measures.
The construction project was part of an ambitious high-speed rail project to connect Southeast Asia with China. It is part of Beijing's Belt to Road initiative, a global infrastructure and economic development strategy designed to put China at the center of international trade. The Chinese government attaches great importance to the safety of the project and its personnel, says this spokesperson for the Chinese Foreign Ministry. Thai officials say their focus is on searching for people who may still be trapped. Then they'll work on getting the train back on track. Kayla Hounsell, CBC News, Halifax.
British Columbia is ending its controversial drug decriminalization pilot program.
The pilot hasn't delivered the results that we hoped for. And after very careful consideration, we are not asking the federal government to renew the exemption.
During the 3-year experiment, criminal penalties were removed for small amounts of personal drug possession. Officials had hoped this would reduce stigma, allow more people to seek help, but critics say it only fueled public disorder and failed to lessen the overdose crisis in the province. Well, more Canadian Armed Forces crews are on the ground in Pimicikamak, Cree Nation in northern Manitoba. A 5-day power outage during a cold snap last month left hundreds of homes damaged or destroyed, forcing thousands to flee the remote community. Karen Paul's now on restoration efforts and the road ahead.
When the power finally came back on in Pimicikamak, Cree Nation, frozen water and sewer pipes thawed and burst, damaging the community's treatment facilities and homes. At least 200 are now considered unlivable.
We got to make sure the water tank is working. We got to make sure the pump is working. And then we got to turn on the water. Once we find the water, we get somebody in the crawl space, look for leaks. Once we see leaks, we fix that section.
Local plumbers and electricians are getting help from the Canadian Armed Forces. An advance crew landed Monday. Now 3 engineering experts are also on the ground.
Our technical assessment team is primarily focused on the sewage treatment plant, the water treatment facilities, and the gas station. So we're just trying to figure out where best the CAF, the Canadian Armed Forces, can link in and add value.
The power outage came during a dangerous cold snap. Nearly 4,400 people were forced from their homes. For the 2,000 who stayed, the need for basic necessities is overwhelming.
Most of people's foods were spoiled, right? Because there was no power and whatever. So we had meat packages distributed yesterday. We need diapers, we need wipes, we need formula. Formula is most important, and food.
This isn't the first time the remote Manitoba community, a nearly 12-hour drive north of Winnipeg, has been evacuated. Residents were sent south twice last year because of wildfires.
People are not happy. Everybody wants to go home. And so as we were resting here and said, when do we get to go home? That's what everybody asks.
The community is working with the Red Cross to make sure 1,200 people can stay in hotel rooms in Thompson. A lot of those rooms were already booked for a big regional minor hockey tournament that starts on Friday. Karen Pauls, CBC News, Winnipeg.
More and more Canadians are complaining about their phone and internet provider.
I do find it pretty expensive.
If the price is the problem, then we ask, what's the solution? Next. And just a day after Donald Trump said the U.S. doesn't need cars made in Canada, a Canadian-made car is honored at the Detroit Auto Show. And a remarkable reunion nearly 2 months after a dog went missing in the wild.
It feels like our family is whole again.
We're back in 2.
This is a true global car. It is for the U.S., it's for Canada, it's for Mexico, it's for Europe, it's for the Middle East.
He is talking about the Dodge Charger 6-pack made in Windsor, Ontario. It's been named Car of the Year at the North American International Auto Show. The union representing Windsor assembly workers says this is a testament to their hard work and the Canada-US-Mexico agreement that allowed the Charger to be built. This comes just a day after Donald Trump said the U.S. doesn't need Canadian-made vehicles or the trade agreement. Well, an independent watchdog overseeing Canadian telecoms says customer complaints are on the rise. Julia Wong now on the one issue that has Canadian customers fed up the most.
We only have so many options in Canada.
Michael Ma has a love-hate relationship with his cell phone provider.
When it works, I'm satisfied. When it doesn't work, I'm unsatisfied. In terms of how much it costs, I definitely think it could be lower.
Telecom grumbling isn't new, but for a third year running, a report from Canada's telecom watchdog shows complaints at a record high. More than 23,000 from August 1st, 2024 to July 31st, 2025, a year-over-year jump of 17%. As in the past, both cell phones and billing dominate concerns.
I'm with Virgin, and I do find it pretty expensive.
We were with Bell, and then we moved to Public Mobile. Drastically cut our bill, like 25%.
As the cost of living rises, household budgets are tightening, and consumers are more sensitive to either price changes or, billing disputes that they may not have otherwise pursued in the past.
The Commission urges carriers to communicate more clearly with customers about their services and contracts.
Very often the carriers retain the right to increase some of those prices. And so consumers sometimes get a bit of sticker shock where they think they've agreed to one price and only to find that a month to 6 months later, suddenly that price has increased.
Solutions won't be immediate. There isn't much competition in Canada. Rogers and Shaw merged 3 years ago.
We really need to focus on how do we bring more competitors into the mix without forcing them to duplicate the billion-dollar investments that other companies have made.
The organization representing Canadian telecoms tells CBC News the complaints represent less than 0.1% of subscribers. The federal department that oversees the industry says it's promoting competition in the telecom sector and using policy to make services more affordable. Julia Wong, CBC News, Edmonton.
An unlikely winner of sorts at the Australian Open tonight.
Oh my goodness me! He's won $1 million!
The amateur who managed to stun the pros. Next. If Donald Trump does get Greenland, what happens to NATO?
Taking Greenland by force or coercion would mean the U.S. turning on an ally, Denmark.
And what the science says about all that Venezuelan oil that Trump says is headed to the U.S.
Heavy oil leads to two big problems.
The National breaks down the story shaping our world. Next. $1 million, a big prize at the Australian Open, but that is not a professional tennis player. Contest winner Jordan Smith had to take just 1 point in matchups with top pros, including world number 2 ranked player Jannik Sinner. Smith is a tennis coach, but even he called the win unbelievable. The prize totals just over 900,000 Canadian. Smith said he will use it to buy a house. Well, 2025 was the 3rd hottest year on record, according to new climate data. As Jill English shows us, while some countries bore the brunt of the heat, the consequences rippled around the world.
In the mountains of central Tajikistan, a collapsed glacier rushes at 6 meters per second.
The glacier collapse, we say it's surged, related and triggered by high temperatures.
Tajikistan had the most abnormal temperatures in the world in 2025 at 3 degrees above average, but it wasn't an anomaly. Countries in Central Asia and West Africa soared past annual heat records, as did the UK and the Arctic. More than 70 countries across the world broke monthly temperature records, and all this data informed reports from several leading agencies concluding 2025 was the 3rd hottest year on record. But the top line isn't the full picture. 2025 was only a fraction of a degree below 2023 and 2024, Pull back, and you see a stark reality of temperature trends driven by human emissions.
Whenever we talk about climate, we talk about averaged weather, and we take the average over 20 years at least, 20 to 30 years. We certainly are in the hottest decade.
Behind the graphs and trends, devastating conditions. Take Senegal at 45 degrees.
Moi, je me rappelle de mes enfants.
When my 12-year-old comes home from school with no AC and no fan, she tells us, he's hot and thirsty. It's stressful, she says. It's demoralizing. Heat waves were the world's deadliest form of extreme weather in 2025. High temperatures hit economies, too. Dried up shipping routes disrupted trade, and around the world, agriculture faced devastating losses.
In a normal dry summer, when you think it's dried up, it's nothing like this.
2025 is now climate history, but just 2 weeks into 2026, the heat is unrelenting. Experts have calculated Australia's temperatures in the high 40s last week were made up to 5 times more likely by climate change. Jill English, CBC News, Toronto.
Now it's time to dig deeper into the stories shaping our world. After the United States seized Venezuela's president, Trump's attention has turned to the South American nation's oil.
Venezuela is sitting on the world's largest estimated oil reserves.
President Trump is focused on Venezuela's oil.
We'll show you what makes it so difficult to extract. But first,
I could put a lot of soldiers there right now if I want, but you need more than that. You need ownership.
Donald Trump seems bound and determined to take over Greenland, and the fallout of that has implications everywhere, including right here in Canada. Greenland is part of Denmark, a founding member of NATO. So what happens if Trump tries to take the Arctic territory with U.S. military force? Chris Brown digs into whether the alliance can withstand one ally attacking another.
NATO is likely facing its toughest mission yet, convincing U.S. President Donald Trump to abandon demands to take over Greenland.
We need it for national security.
We are going to do something on Greenland, whether they like it or not.
We need Greenland.
Trying to discern what's bluster and what's serious about the president's intentions is now the biggest transatlantic guessing game going. Taking Greenland by force or coercion would mean the U.S. turning on an ally, Denmark, and that could spell the end of NATO. In September, NATO staged Operation Arctic Light in Greenland, meant to demonstrate that NATO can project force into the Arctic right now, and that the United States owning Greenland isn't necessary. And Denmark says starting immediately, it will have a bigger military footprint on Greenland and a more permanent presence going forward.
Currently, we are working on the next steps to make sure that indeed we collectively protect what is at stake here.
So far, though, Trump has sounded unimpressed.
I could put a lot of soldiers there right now if I want, but you need more than that. You need ownership. You really need title, as they say in the real estate business.
The world's largest island, Greenland, is semi-autonomous. Its 57,000 residents, mostly Inuit, are part of the Kingdom of Denmark, but its long, often unpleasant colonial history has led many Greenlanders to aspire to independence. Joining the United States was never on the horizon.
Last year it was just something joke, something we take it, Greenland is not for sale, it's just a joke. But now we're nervous about what if they come and World War begins again.
We have been colonized before and we don't want to be colonized again.
Right now, the 1951 defense agreement with Denmark means the United States can keep as many troops in Greenland as it wants. It used to have 10,000, but now it is fewer than 200. So if Trump's desire is for a bigger Arctic footprint, it's easy to achieve.
This whole idea,
which is why many Europeans believe Trump is really after something else. If the goal is to actually take Greenland away from Denmark, if that's the goal, how does NATO survive that?
That is the really good question. I think we're starting to see that this is not really about either national security, international security, or resources. I think it's about Trump's legacy. I think it's about him wanting to expand the American territory.
The capture of Venezuela's president has intensified the urgency. Trump ordered the high-risk capture of Nicolas Maduro, ignoring the principle of national sovereignty and prompting Denmark's leader to sharpen her messages about Greenland.
If the United States chooses to attack another NATO country militarily, then everything stops. That is, including NATO, and thus the security that has been provided since the end of the Second World War.
I think it will be a breakdown of rule of law and international law and existing agreements and treaties, and I think that would be a bad outcome and a big shame for us, because I think we have all prospered a lot from the NATO alliance.
I know in NATO you guys do and did all sorts of planning for every imaginable contingency. The situation that's unfolding now in Greenland, was that one of them?
No. We are preparing plans for our adversaries, not for our allies.
How does all this leave you feeling?
It's a bit weird. I think NATO is too important for the United States, and therefore I cannot imagine that this will lead to an invasion of the United States in Greenland.
Rob Bauer, until recently NATO's top soldier, believes it's possible to win Trump over with strong demonstrations of force by NATO, such as exercises, and by appealing to other Americans who support the alliance.
If you look at the Senate, there's a large majority for NATO. In the United States, the last polling indicates an increase in support for NATO. It's now 70%, which is quite high for the US in the last couple of months. If the president would turn away from NATO, he will have to do a lot of explaining inside his own nation.
NATO has been tested by internal crises in the past and shown resilience. In 1966, France pulled its forces out of unified NATO command and didn't return until 2009. Turkey and Greece, both NATO members, have come close to going to war against each other, and there was deep acrimony over the US invasion of Iraq in 2003. Each time, nations pulled back before causing lasting damage to the alliance, says Bauer.
This is the way President Trump, probably his whole life, it has worked. It's put a lot of pressure on your opponent and then slowly let the pressure go and basically get what you want. I think that's still what we see here.
Donald Trump has not said how he intends to get Greenland. He could push Greenlanders to accept some kind of association with the United States. He could buy the island, try to annex it, or invade it. Every major political party in Greenland has said they don't want to become Americans and that Greenlanders must decide their own future. Donald Trump appears to believe he can get ownership of Greenland and stay in the NATO military alliance. The message he's hearing back is he can't have both.
So now what for the world, for Canada? Janice Stein, founding director of the University of Toronto's Monk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy, is here to help us out. Listen, this threat of the U.S. taking Greenland somehow, you hear the fears about how this could be the end of NATO. But what should Canadians be making of all of this? People who are looking at this saying something's happening to another country somewhere else.
This is not somewhere else, Adrian. We are right in the middle between Alaska and Greenland. This is us, and we're making a huge mistake if we think it's somewhere else.
Should we be, I appreciate watching for the end game of this, but is there something else Canada should be watching in terms of how Denmark handles this?
You know, Denmark sounds a lot like us. They're reasonable. Their foreign minister said we're going to agree to disagree. This is an acid test, Adrian, whether reasonableness can get the job done or we need another strategy.
Is it Greenland that you're worried about? Or is it maybe the United States capturing the president of Venezuela, or is it Iran, right? This unrest, the threats of an American attack and whatever may come after that. It is really hard to know what to be concerned about the most.
You know, we have 3 simultaneous explosive crises going on at the same time. So I shift from day to day. Right now, I am most worried about Iran. It is the one where everybody expects the other one to attack first. Fingers are on the trigger. And that's when you get escalation that, frankly, nobody wants right now. It did sound a little bit like Donald Trump was talking himself down, but he's very close to a red line, Adrienne. And look, Barack Obama never lived down the fact that he drew a red line and then did nothing.
Is there something else that's happening in Iran as well? Because you know, you sort of alluded to it. They're all kind of connected in a way. Would the Iranians have seen what happened in Venezuela and taken some lessons from that?
Everybody's learning and trying to figure out what the right lessons are. It's no coincidence that the Ayatollah Khamenei is now in hiding. They certainly took that from Venezuela. They also started by being reasonable and offering to come back to the table. But they undermined their own case by the brutal firing that has been going on against civilians. There are really horrific videos that I am seeing. They're walking a very fine line now. Execution, well, if there are none, which is what Donald Trump is saying, he's not seeing any. And if there's no hanging, they're on the very edge of the cliff right now, both of them. We'll have to see if they can back away. I think that's the one that's most likely to explode in the next few days.
So what do you then watch for in terms of exploding or backing away? What are the signals you're looking for?
You watch Donald Trump talk his way off the cliff, and, you know, he makes it up as he goes along. The Iranians, too, will have to back down. They will have to not execute the prisoner that they said deserves justice now. And for all intents and purposes, because the demonstrations are slowing, there should be fewer of those horrific scenes that come out of the country.
Very briefly, in the middle of this is Canada. The Prime Minister is in China right now. How does Canada stay out of trouble?
It probably can't stay out of trouble given the neighborhood we live in. We live in the Western Hemisphere next to the United States. But we are getting a chance, Adrienne, to watch others try out different strategies. We need to be close observers of what happens to Denmark and Greenland as this goes forward. Can reasonableness prevail at all with this president?
And can more defense in the Arctic help?
Oh boy, we need to invest in the Arctic. We need year-round ports. We are behind, Adrienne. We need a sense of urgency in this country.
Janice Stein, as always, thank you.
Pleasure.
As Trump eyes up Venezuelan oil, there are warnings it might not be as easy to extract as he might hope.
You can refine it, but it becomes more expensive.
Why Venezuelan oil is so hard to get at. Next. Following the seizure of Venezuela's president, questions have been swirling about what will happen to the country's oil industry.
Venezuela has the world's largest proven oil reserves.
It's also some of the hardest crude to extract on the planet.
The discount of the oil at the end it's higher, the production cost.
Johanna Wagstaff breaks down what makes Venezuela's oil unique, a modern problem that is millions of years in the making.
Venezuela and its oil are in the spotlight.
Venezuela is sitting on the world's largest estimated oil reserves.
President Trump is focused on Venezuela's oil.
Venezuela has the world's largest proven oil reserves. So what do we know about Venezuela oil? We know the volume of it under Venezuela rivals Canada's oil sands in scale, comparable to the world's remaining conventional oil combined. But when it comes to how much is recoverable, it's less about politics and more about geology, and a little about bacteria. Most of the oil in question sits in the Orinoco Oil Belt, a massive geological formation running across eastern Venezuela. USGS scientists have long estimated there's roughly 900 to 1,400 billion barrels of oil available here, but only this much is estimated to be technically recoverable using existing technology. Why? Because not all oil behaves the same way. And to understand what makes Venezuela's oil unique, we need to understand that oil is made up of hydrocarbons, molecules that come in all sorts of sizes. Some are short, light chains that flow easily, like thin syrup or water. Others are long, heavy chains that barely move at all. Think peanut butter. Geologists measure this using something called API gravity. Light oils have high API gravity, heavy oils have low. Extra heavy oil sits at the extreme end of that scale, and Venezuela's oil is about as extreme as it gets. So why is Venezuela's oil so heavy? In order for oil to form, you need organic-rich seabeds that are then buried, heated, and trapped. Sometimes this happens near mountains. Venezuela followed that script. During the Cretaceous, its basins filled with marine life, later cooked into oil as nearby mountains folded. What happened next is what makes Venezuela different. Over millions of years, the oil migrated upward into cooler rock. There, microbes moved in, feeding first on the lightest hydrocarbons. What remained were those long, complex molecules, the thicker, denser, stickier stuff. This process, known as biodegradation, transformed much of Venezuela's oil long before humans arrived. The result is this extra heavy crude with extremely high viscosity. In some cases, it barely behaves like a liquid at all. Compare that to other major regions. Saudi light crude often stayed deeper and hotter, protecting it from microbes. US shale oil is locked in tight rock, making it hard for microbes to get in the first place. But Venezuela's oil lingered where microbes could survive. And Canada's oil sands, they are heavy too, forming under not exact but very similar pressures to Venezuela.
Microorganisms, most of them, they can't live in high temperature, especially here in the oil sands, in Athabasca oil sands. We are very shallow, the reservoirs, so it's the perfect temperature for the microorganisms to degrade the oil.
Heavy oil leads to two big problems. First, it doesn't flow easily. Light oil can rise naturally to the surface, but extra heavy oil has to be coaxed with heat, solvents, or by mixing it with lighter hydrocarbons to make it pumpable. Every one of those steps costs energy. Second, heavy oil is also just harder to refine. It contains more sulfur, more complex molecules. You need specialized refineries to break it down, and only a fraction of the world's refineries are designed for that job.
You can refine it, but it becomes more expensive. So the discount of the oil at the end it's higher. The production costs to make the break even will be higher and likely will be higher than the oil sands.
From a climate perspective, oils like Venezuela's are among the most energy intensive to get from the ground to the gas tank. Despite the turbulence surrounding Venezuela's oil sector, one thing is clear. Global dependence on oil and the consequences tied to it are still shaping decisions in real time.
U.S. President Donald Trump has said the U.S. will be selling up to 50 million barrels of Venezuelan oil. Today, the White House announced it made its first sale, valued at about $500 million. When we come back, a weeks-long search for a missing dog has a happy ending.
It feels like our family is whole again.
Their reunion and the community that helped make it happen. Next. This is a reunion 54 days in the making. That is how long Bammy the dog was missing in North Vancouver. Tonight, she is back with her owners. So what happened? Bammy managed to survive in the woods for nearly 2 months, and with the help of the community, she's finally home. That reunion makes our moment.
It was honestly overwhelming in the best way.
We started that search from the very first day and we're with her until the very end. She covered a lot of ground.
It feels like our family is whole again. She was missing for just over 2 months.
This was an unusually long case. Finally, we got a sighting. She ended up on the side of a pretty heavy flowing river. She was super skinny, and so we were getting really worried. We kind of flushed her out towards where we set up the owners. And as soon as she got like that sense of her owner and her tail went up and the reunion was on, she was super, super happy.
She saw me and ran toward me.
I couldn't believe it was a real happening. A pet is not just pet, but more meaningful. I felt so relieved and grateful.
Ooh, she must have been tired. So the thing is, Bambi was caught on a trail camera and security surveillance cameras, as you saw there, many, many times, but she would only ever stay in one place for like a few hours at a time, so it made it really difficult to catch her. So glad they did. From all of us at The National, thanks for being with us. I'm Adrienne Arsenault. Take care.